Well, good morning, everyone. Hope you're doing well today. Our lesson, of course, is about Father's Day, and I want to talk about fathers, but in kind of a different perspective. Um, we all know we all had fathers in some proportion, one way or the other. And of course, mine and my wife Karen's uh, dads are gone now, as many of your fathers too, of course. And so there's a lot of memories, a lot of thoughts about that, and some good, some bad, whatever. But I want to talk about something. And what I want to do is I want to make it a personal sharing. The title of the lesson is 10 Unforgettable Lessons on Fatherhood from Two Fathers. And those two fathers are in my life. And I do this not to accentuate and to point out my fathers in my life and use this platform for that, but to kind of symbolically talk about fatherhood. As they taught me these things in my life, this is how fathers, how important they are in the life of a family and to their children. And so this will hopefully bring back memories, positive memories about your fathers and grandfathers or whatever it may be that have really supported you as you grew up. And this talks about that. So let's start with a bit of a humor. I've got my favorite joke, and I've told this before, and it's an old joke, but I think still hilarious. And there was these three young fathers who were in the waiting room waiting for their children to be born. The first was told, she brought out the baby and said that he should have given birth to twins. Well, he was amazed and said, "Wow, I play baseball with the Minnesota Twins. How ironic." Well, about an hour later, another nurse came out and told the second man, "Well, congratulations, you're the father of triplets." He said, "That is amazing. I work for 3M Company." The next man fainted dead away. And they finally revived him. And they said, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" He said, "I work for 7 Up." It's corny, I know, but it's still funny about fatherhood. Um, I came across a video that made a huge impression on me, and a serious note here, that really sets the tone of our lesson on how important fatherhood is. Lucille Ball, I love Lucy, you know her. Well, shortly before her death, she was interviewed by Merv Griffin. And he asked her a very serious and pointed question I thought was just excellent. And he asked, "Lucille, you've lived a long time on this earth and you're a wise person. What's happened to our country? What's wrong with our children? Why are families falling apart? What's missing?" And without hesitation, Lucille Ball answered, "Papa's missing. Things are falling apart because Papa is gone. If Papa were here, he would fix it." Isn't that insightful? All those years of knowledge and wisdom and experience. And that is the first thing and the only thing she said. Papa would fix things. So, in no particular order, here are 10 lessons on fatherhood I learned from watching two fathers who made a lasting impression on me. Well, first was my own father. And then there was my father in law, who was my friend and mentor before I even married his daughter. And even after that, we continued our friendship and mentorship. Each lesson from these two fathers taught me in how to live my life. And from the memories of their care for me, they've embedded themselves in my actions. So I hope these 10 lessons, quick lessons in life, remembering the fathers who maybe shaped you and who you are today. Well, let's get busy. Let's get to the first thing, unforgettable lesson I have. The first one, and not once again, not in order, just importance, just kind of randomly thrown out there. Number one, they were never too busy. Irma Bombeck, the great author, we love her. You know where she is, and she's a great humorist, but at the same time insightful. About on Father's Day, she wrote this article, and I want to read it to you because it really sets everything that I'm talking about fathers are never too busy. Let me read it to you. What does a father do? I received a letter from a single mother who had raised a son who was about to become a dad. Since he had no recollection of his own father, her question to me was, what do I tell him a father does? And she says, well, when my dad died in my 9th year, I too was raised by my mother, giving rise to the same question. What do fathers do? As far as I could observe, they brought around the car when it rained so everyone else could stay dry. They always took the family pictures, which is why they're never in them. They carved turkeys on Thanksgiving, kept the car gassed up, weren't afraid to go into the basement. They mowed the lawn and tightened the clothesline to keep it from sagging. It wasn't until my husband and I had children that I was able to observe firsthand what a father contributed to a child's life. What did he do to deserve his children's respect? He rarely fed them, did anything about their sagging diapers, wiped their noses or even fannies, played ball or bonded with them under the hoods of their cars. What did he do? He threw them higher than his head until they were weak from laughter. He cast the deciding vote on the puppy debate. He listened more than he talked. He let them make mistakes. He allowed them to fall from their first two-wheeler without having a heart attack. He read a newspaper while they were trying to parallel park a car for the first time in preparation for their driving test. If I had to tell someone's son what a father really does, that is important. It would be like he shows up for the job in good times and bad times. He's a man who is constantly being observed by his children. They learn from him how to handle adversity, anger, disappointment, and even success. He won't laugh at their dreams, no matter how impossible they might seem. He will dig out at 1 a.m. when one of the children runs out of gas and go take care of them. He'll make unpopular decisions and stand by them. When he is wrong and makes a mistake, he'll admit to it. He sets the tone for how family members treat one another, members of the opposite sex and people who are different than they are. By example, he can instill a desire to give something back to the community when its needs are greater than theirs. But mostly, a good father involves himself in his kids' lives. The more responsibility he has for a child, the harder it is to walk out of his life. A father has a potential to be a powerful force in the life of a child. Grab it. Maybe you'll get a greeting card from your efforts. Maybe not. But it's a steady work. She says, my dad was so busy, but he was always there. And I thought about what Irma Bombeck said, and I thought about my dad. My dad was busy pastoring a church and caring for his flock in all hours of the day, 7 days a week. But the memories of him always stopping to answer my questions, like, hey, Dad, where does the sun go at night? Dad, where is God? He always made time to throw the baseball with me, or take a weekend to go camping, go fishing, or just sometimes we hang out on a back porch talking about life, and he would reminisce and I would listen attentively. Now, my father-in-law took up that mantle as I was pastoring his church by coming by the office and saying, hey, pastor, time to relax, time to enjoy yourself and take time off. I got an extra fishing pole in the car. Let's go. And we would both get up, and I would go with him, and we would have wonderful conversations. He reminded me of the priorities in life. Number 2, lesson I learned from these two men, they were Bible men. Now, in my possession, I have my father's Bible that he preached from and taught from for many, many years. So inside of this beat up, overused with a worn off cover and the zipper won't work anymore and pages coming out is a story of his spiritual journey. On the sidelines are notes of his thoughts on Bible verses all through the Bible. There are so many that I thought, man, what passages are not underlined just about? Little pieces of paper scattered throughout the illustrations on them about something he was trying to remember. Articles that he flipped from a paper that would be a good example of something in some sermon. And then, of course, he performed so many funerals and weddings, he had all kind of bulletins from those events that he took care of people. My father-in-law would strike up on every drive we would make, visiting a church member or on the way to a meeting that we had with the church in some form. And we would discuss the last sermon I preached or Bible study we did and about certain passages or Bible stories that he would inquire about and he would want to ponder it. He wanted to bounce it off of me. And pretty soon we had a dialogue going all the way to that meeting place, wherever it may be. I learned so much from his hard, probing questions, the hunger he had to understand. And then a lot of them I didn't understand myself, so it made me go research it further. But he also provided those down and earth and insightful insights to my life because he goes, you know what I think? I went, I never thought about that. My two fathers based their lives on Bible truths to make sure I was safe and cared for. Number 3, they worship God in public and in private. A memory that was so powerful for me was a Saturday morning. We lived in Fort Worth, Texas. My dad was a pastoring a church. I was just finishing high school, and we lived in a parsonage right next door to the church, which is so often the truth. A phone call came in one afternoon on Saturday and wanted to speak to my dad. So my mom says, go over to the church. Your dad's over there somewhere doing something, and go tell him there's a phone call. I went to the door and opened the church up, and I could hear a voice going on inside. And there was my dad kneeling at the altar, crying and weeping before God in prayer, seeking answers and strength for his life as a public pastor and as a family man, and in private also as a man seeking forgiveness and strength. I stood there in awe and deeply moved to this rock of strength I thought that was like granite. And there was a humble man talking in desperation and love to his Heavenly Father. It taught me a powerful lesson. I observed so many times my father-in-law, who as a church leader standing strong with compassion and understanding with church members as well as people he encountered every day. He had the patience of Job and the wisdom of Solomon. And he was a great example. He taught me daily of how to talk to people and love them. Number 4, they cheered me on. You have heard the story when I was a young boy, and across the street from where we lived in South Texas was a huge oak tree. And I'll tell the story real quickly. I won't go into detail. And our boys, one of the things of manhood was to climb out on this big, tall limb that curved out and came down further out. And we all had to climb that limb. Well, my day came and I went on that limb. Well, it got smaller and smaller as you went higher and higher. And right at the very apex, the very top area, before it starts going down, it got pretty narrow, and that ground was a mile away down below, and I froze. Well, they knew I couldn't say anything. I was so ashamed, but at the same time, I was terrified. Someone ran and got my dad. He came back, and he encouraged me. He cheerleaded me on to keep going forward inch by inch until I went down to the very end, and he lifted me off the limb. That was what I really realized. He was my cheerleader. My father-in-law would regularly tell me how inspirational my sermons were and how meaningful my counseling and leadership was, shaping his life, the church, and the community. He also reminded me a few times that said, Charles, that's what they called me, Charles, you need to do this or do that. That's an area you need to improve on. But I know you can do it. They both cheered me on. Number 5, they had a real walk with God. I remember a little story that I found that says a boy was asking his father, who's a pastor, who was writing a sermon out, Dad, how do you know what to say? The boy asked. Well, God tells me. Oh, then why do you keep crossing things out? Very insightful. I relate to him. Both fathers taught me about walking with God and seeing my dad focusing intently on his sermons and counseling of the parishioners and my father-in-law fixed on searching God's will in his life and being a lay leader in the church of all people there. Their whole lives with me showed me that the real man is a godly man, and that every day at every moment, if you keep your vision on God's path, life will be good and right. Number 6, they taught me theology wherever we were. They connected all of life, both seen and unseen, to God's masterful plan. In the moments of being outdoors, they would mention the miracles around me of creation and the people that walked the streets around me going, isn't that great? That's a great guy over there, da, da, da. And they would point out God's presence wherever he went. In humor, they would point out some people that were not desirable necessarily, and were not to look at or even attitude, but they reminded me they were children of God. All around God's presence, they exemplified and shown me. I read that a spiritual father lights the way so others may find God in darkness. I like that. Number 7, they loved their family when it wasn't easy. One little tyke I remember in a story my dad used to tell, apparently misunderstood on the term of broken home, and he promptly was admonished by his father, who said, I don't care if the basement wall is cracking. Please stop telling everyone you come from a broken home. Children go through 4 stages, I found out. First, they call you Dada. Then they call you Daddy. As a mature, they call you Dad. And then they finally call you Collect. That's the way my life has been. I wasn't easy to live with many times. Now, I think my sister was worse than me, but that's just my opinion. I'm disappointed by my actions and words so many times, but yet they both never gave up on me. I took this legacy for my children. One night, I told my sons when they were small, when I put them to bed one night, that no matter what they did, I would always love them. It stung them. So, of course, here come the questioning. They challenged me by asking if certain things they would do would negate that I wouldn't love them anymore. And each time of their inquiry, I would say, no, my unconditional love is to love you. But I won't like what you did, but I'll never stop loving you. They never forgot that. In fact, they never brought it up again, but it became a truth that they hinged their whole life on. They believed it. Here's number 8. My fathers helped me love the church. You have heard that pastors' children are either saints or devils. Well, that is true in some ways. I mean, if you were made to go to church sometimes 4 or 5 times a week, and on Sunday all day, you would try to do the best you could, or you could do the opposite of what was being taught. It was a choice. But my dad gave me the latitude to spiritually wrestle on the importance of church. Oh, yes, he made me go as a pastor's son, and I couldn't squeal out of it because I want to watch a TV program. But he allowed me to find the very root importance of it in my life. And it was a struggle. There was a time when I dropped out from church, when I got old enough to find myself and do other things. But then I found out that there was a hunger in me, a hollow place, that nothing satisfied. I felt guilty, I guess because of the habit of going. But also there was something there special. And that pulled me back into the church. My father was the example. My father-in-law epitomized this love by faithfully being there every Sunday in worship. And in every program, he was right there on the front bench, rooting on and being involved in everything. He had a passion for church life. I could see his love in the worship. Well, number 9, my dad loved my mom. And my father-in-law loved his wife. I love the story of a Mother's Day gift that was ever given, the best one ever given. The Houston Chronicle, I have the article in my file, reported a story about a guy named Jerry Maltz who gave his wife an iron. And he got the message when she gave him an ironing board for Father's Day. Now that's love both ways. I think that's cute. And here's an interesting story. to epitomize what I'm talking about here, how fathers should love their children, but most love their mother. The executives, this is a very true story. The executives of a greeting card company decided to do something special for Mother's Day. So they set up a table in a federal prison, inviting inmates to send a card free for to their mom. The lines were so long they had to go get more cards. Due to the success of the event, they decided to do the same thing on Father's Day. But this time, not one prisoner felt the need to send a card to his dad. When asked, many had no idea who their fathers were. Isn't that insightful? I share this personal story from my life that I've never told really anybody. I want to share it with you. When I was a young adult, my dad gave me a sealed envelope. Says, and had my mom's name on the front. And he said, "You keep this, because I expect to die before your mother. And when I do, when it's appropriate time, I want you to give her this envelope. It's something from me to her." I said, "Okay, Dad." And I kept that envelope. But when they both died together, I was at a quandary there. I'd gone through all the funerals and the memorials and stuff like that, and I finally got home to Washington, D.C., and I sat one Saturday morning, and this went on about a week plus. I finally got home, and I sat there Saturday morning. I remember that envelope, and I took it out of the drawer, and I looked at it. Carried it around for almost 40 years. I carried that envelope. To open it, it's sacred. It's a message from my dad to my mom, but she's not here. What do I do with it? And I decided, well, I'll carry it no matter what, but somebody's going to read it eventually, probably, unless I throw it away, and I'm not dare do that. So I said, okay, it's time for me to read it on behalf. With shaking hands, I opened up the envelope. And you know what was inside? It was like a 5 or 6 page love letter from my dad to my mom of how much he deeply loved her, and went on about all kinds of things, thinking that she's looking for the future after he's gone. And this was the way he was trying to comfort her and reassure her that his love was always there and never shaken. My hands shook. Tears streamed down my face. Barely could read. And then I finally closed it up. My dad loved my mom as a dad should and hopefully do. Number 10 and last. These fathers never wavered in what was right and true. I love this short story from Paul Harvey that kind of captures it. And I'll just read his little article here that talks about right and true. What are fathers made of? A father is a thing that is forced to endure childbirth without an anesthetic. A father is a thing that growls when it feels good and laughs very loud when it's scared half to death. A father never feels entirely worthy of the worship in a child's eyes. He's never quite the hero his daughter thinks, never quite the man his son believes him to be, and this worries him sometimes. So he works too hard to try and smooth the rough places in the road for those of his own who would follow him. A father is a thing that gets very angry when the first school grades aren't as good as he thinks they should be. He scolds his son though he knows that's a teacher's fault. Fathers are what give daughters away to other men who aren't nearly good enough, so they can have grandchildren who are smarter than anybody. Fathers make bets with insurance companies about who will live the longest. Though they know the odds, they keep right on betting, and one day they lose. I don't know where fathers go where they die, but I've got an idea that after a good rest, wherever it is, he won't be happy unless there's work to do. He won't just sit on a cloud and wait for the girl he's loved and the children he bore. He'll be busy there too, repairing the stairs, oiling the gates, improving the streets, and smoothing the way. Fathers set the example of good and right. Fathers are the spiritual icons. of standing up ethically and morally when you're questioned, when you have to decide. And my fathers, both of them, showed me what it was to be strong. I conclude with this one statement from Proverbs. The two fathers in my life didn't tell me how to live, but they lived and let me watch them do it. Proverbs tells us, listen, children, to a father's instruction and pay attention so that you may gain discernment. I praise God for my two fathers who showed me the way. And hopefully, someday they'll look at me and go, good job.